Well, all right. How's about we get started with a little bit of Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales? Yeah, all right. But first, you know what we do? We set the mood. That's right. Yeah, okay. Today, we start where we left off on our last Grimm's Fairy Tale, The Young Giant, and we lead in with Sweet Porridge. That's right. There was a poor but good little girl who lived alone with her mother, and they no longer had anything to eat. So the child went into the forest, and there an aged woman met her who was aware of her sorrow, and presented her with a little pot, which when said, "Cook, little pot, cook," would cook good sweet porridge, and when she said, "Stop, little pot," it ceased to cook. The little girl took the pot home to her mother, and now they were freed from poverty and hunger, and ate sweet porridge as often as they chose. Once on a time, when the girl had gone out, her mother said, "Cook, little pot, cook," and it did cook, and she ate till she was satisfied. And then she wanted the pot to stop cooking, but did not know the word. So it went on a cooking, and the porridge rose over the edge, and still it cooked, on until the kitchen and the whole house were full, and then the next house, and then the whole street, just as if it wanted to satisfy the hunger of the whole world. And there was the greatest distress, but no one knew how to stop it. At last, when only one single house remained, the child came home and just said, "Stop, little pot," and it stopped and gave up cooking, and whosoever wished to return to the town had to eat his way back. All right, and that has been Sweet Porridge. Let us move on to the Elves, a three-part story. Number one, the Elves. There was once a shoemaker who, through no fault of his own, became so poor that at last he had nothing left but just enough leather to make one pair of shoes. He cut out the shoes at night so as to set to work upon them the next morning, and as he had a good conscience, he laid himself quietly down in his bed, committed himself to heaven, and fell asleep. In the morning, after he said his prayers and was going to get to work, he found the pair of shoes made and finished, and standing on his table. He was very much astonished, and could not tell what to think, and he took the shoes in his hand to examine them more closely, and they were so well made that every stitch was in its right place, just as if they had come from the hand of a master workman. Soon after, a purchaser entered, and as the shoes fitted him very well, he gave more than the usual price for them, so that the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for two more pair of shoes. He cut them out at night and intended to set to work the next morning with a fresh spirit. But that was not to be, for when he got up, they were already finished, and even a customer was not lacking, who gave him so much money that when he was able to buy enough leather for 4 new pair. Early next morning he found the 4 pairs also finished, and so it always happened. Whatever he cut out in the evening was worked up by the morning, so that he was soon in the way of making a good living, and in the end became very well to do. One night, not long after Christmas, when the shoemaker had finished cutting out, and before he went to bed, he said to his wife, "How would it be if we were to sit up tonight and see who it is doing us this service?" His wife agreed and set a light to burn. Then they both hid in the corner of the room behind some coats that were hanging up, and then they began to watch. As soon as it was midnight, they saw come in 2 neatly formed naked little men, who seated themselves before the shoemaker's table, and took up the work that was already prepared, and began to stitch, to pierce, and to hammer so cleverly and quickly with their little fingers that the shoemaker's eyes could scarcely follow them. So full of wonder was he, and they never left off until everything was finished and was standing ready on the table, and then they jumped up and ran off. The next morning the shoemaker's wife said to her husband, "Those little men have made us rich, and we ought to show ourselves grateful. With all their running about and having nothing to cover them, they must be very cold. I tell you what, I will make little shirts, coats, waistcoats, and breeches for them, and knit each of them a pair of stockings, and you shall make each of them a pair of shoes." The husband consented willingly, and at night, when everything was finished, they laid the gifts together on a table instead of the cut-out work, and placed themselves so that they could observe the little men would behave. When midnight came, they rushed in, ready to set to work, but when they found instead the pieces of prepared leather, the neat little garments put ready for them, they stood a moment in surprise, and then they showed the greatest delight. With the greatest swiftness they took up the pretty garments and slipped them on, singing, "What spruce and dandy boys are we, no longer cobblers we will be." Then they hopped to dance about, jumped over the chairs and tables, and at last they danced out the door. From that time they were never seen again, but it always went well with the shoemaker as long as he lived, and whatever he took in hand prospered. All right, and that has been the first tale. Here is the second tale of the elves. There was once a poor servant maid who was very cleanly and industrious. She swept down the house every day and put the sweepings on a great heap by the door. One morning, before she began her work, she found a letter, and as she could not read, she laid her broom in the corner and took the letter to her master and mistress to see what it was about. And it was an invitation from the elves, who wished the maid to come and stand godmother to one of their children. The maid did not know what to do, and as she was told that no one ought to refuse the elves anything, she made up her mind to go. So there came 3 little elves who conducted her into the middle of a high mountain where the little people lived. Here everything was of a very small size, but more fine and elegant than can be told. The mother of the child lay in a bed made of ebony, studded with pearls. The counterpane was embroidered with gold. The candle was of ivory, and the bathing tub of gold. So the maid stood godmother, and was then for going home. But the elves begged her to stay at least 3 more days with them, and so she consented, and spent her time in mirth and jollity, and the elves seemed very fond of her. At last, when she was ready to go away, they filled her pockets with gold, and led her back again out of the mountain. When she got home, she was going to begin working again, and took her broom in hand. It was still standing in the corner where she had left it, and began to sweep. Then came some strangers and asked her who she was and what she was doing, and she found that instead of 3 days she had been gone 7 years with the elves in the mountain, and that during that time her master and mistress had died. And that's been tale number 2. Let's tell tale number 3 of the little elves. The elves once took a child away from its mother, and left its place a changeling with a big head and staring eyes, who did nothing but eat and drink. The mother in her trouble went to the neighbor and asked their advice. The neighbors told her to take the changeling into the kitchen and put it in near the hearth, and then take it, and then to make up a fire, and then boil water in 2 eggshells that would make the changeling laugh. And if he laughed, it would be all over with him. So the woman did as her neighbors advised, and when she set the eggshells of water in the fire, the changeling said, "Thou olt I be as forest tree, cooking in an eggshell never did I see," and began to laugh. And directly there came in the crowd of elves, bringing in the right child, and they laid it near the hearth, and carried the changeling away with them. That was tale number 3 of the elves. And now we read one with some funny names that I might not pronounce correctly. Fair Katrinelje and Pif-Paf-Poltrie. Good day, Father Hollandy. Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie. May I be allowed to have your daughter? Oh, yes, if Mother Milch Cow, Brother High and Mighty, Sister Cassentrout, and Fair Katrinelje are willing, you can have her. Where's Mother Malcho, then? Oh, she's in the cow house milking the cow. Good day, Mother Malcho. Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie. May I be allowed to have your daughter? Oh, yes, if Father Hollanthy, Brother High and Mighty, Sister Cassentrout, and Fair Katrinelje are willing, you can have her. Where is Brother High and Mighty, then? Oh, he is in his room chopping some wood. Good day, Brother High and Mighty. Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie. May I be allowed to have your sister? Oh, yes, if Father Hollandy, Mother Macho, Sister Cassentrout, and Fair Katrinelje are willing, you can have her. Where is Sister Cassentrout, then? Oh, she's in the garden cutting cabbages. Good day, Sister Cassentrout. Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie. May I be allowed to have your sister? Oh, yes, if Father Hollanthy, Mother Macho, Brother High and Mighty, and Fair Katrinelje are willing, you may have her. Where is Fair Katrinelje, then? Oh, she's in the room counting her farthings. Good day, Fair Katrinelje. Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie. Wilt thou be my bride? Oh, yes, if Father Hollandy, Mother Malcho, Brother High and Mighty, and Sister Cassentrout are willing, I am ready. Fair Katrinelje, how much dowry hast thou? 14 farthings in ready money, 3.5 grouse and chine owing to me, half a pound in dried apples, a handful of fry bread, and a handful of spices. And many other things of mine, have I not a dowry fine? Pif-Paf-Poltrie, what is thy trade? Art thou a tailor? Something better. A shoemaker? Something better. A husbandman? Something better. A joiner? Something better. A smith? Something better. A miller? Something better. Perhaps a broom maker? Yes, that's what I am. Is it not a fine trade? And that has been Fair Katrinelje and Pif-Paf-Poltrie. And now we end out our tale for the evening with the Old Beggar Woman. There was once an old woman, but thou hast surely seen an old woman go a-begging before now. This woman begged likewise, and when she got anything, she said, "May God reward you." The beggar woman came to the door, and there was a fire. A friendly rogue of a boy was standing warming himself. Well, by the fire, rather, there was a friendly rogue of a boy who was standing there warming himself. The boy said kindly to the poor old woman as she was standing shivering thus by the door, "Come, old mother, and warm yourself." She came in, but stood too near the fire, so that her old rags began to burn, and she was not aware of it. The boy stood and saw that, but he ought to have put out the flames. And if he could not find any water, then should have wept all the water in his body out his eyes, and that would have supplied 2 fine streams with which to extinguish them. And that has been the Old Beggar Woman. I dare say some of these tales was a bit shy on a bit of a conclusion, but that's what they were, incomplete. So that has been Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales for this evening. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you come back for more. There's more complete tales, I guess you could say, but more proper like. Y'all come back now, and we'll tell you a tale then.